You've lost an argument you should have won. You had the facts, you had the logic, you had the receipts, and the other person, they just didn't care. Your coworker who won't quit the toxic job, even though they complain every single day. Your friend who's about to buy the money pit house, even though you showed them the inspection report with the foundation cracks. Your client who's rage quitting the project, even though they signed a contract 3 weeks ago. You tried reason. You tried pros and cons lists. You tried showing them they're literally contradicting themselves from Tuesday to Thursday. Nothing worked, and you walked away thinking they're the irrational one. But here's what you didn't know. Human brains don't run on logic. They run on something else entirely. And once you understand this one biological quirk, this glitch in how consciousness actually works, you'll never lose another argument again. This technique has a name. It's called Bougienage, and it's stolen from a medical procedure you've never heard of. Here's the lie you've been sold since middle school debate club. Logic wins arguments. Find the contradiction, expose the flaw, checkmate. That works great in a philosophy seminar. In real life, it does nothing. Because your brain doesn't hold beliefs like a computer holds files. It plays them like cards in a game of war. One thought, I need this job. Card 1. Next thought, I have to quit right now. Card 2. Your brain plays them one after another. No friction, no error message, no cognitive dissonance. Russian psychologist Alexei Ukhtomsky called this a dominant, a fixated loop that hijacks the brain's attention. It's not a belief, it's a physiological state. So when you argue with logic, you're trying to build a stone fortress in a swamp. You say, but you have a mortgage. Their brain hears. Threat to dominant, reinforce dominant. They double down. I don't care. Every logical counterpoint you make, it just feeds the obsession. So what do you do instead? Here's where the medical metaphor comes in. Bougienage, a procedure where doctors insert a thin tube, a bougie, into a narrow body passage, throat, esophagus, doesn't matter. The goal? Mechanically stretch it open. You can't destroy a fixated thought, but you can dilate it. You flood the brain with so much competing data that the dominant loses its grip. The trick is knowing what to insert and how to do it without triggering their defenses. Here's the protocol. Step 1. The diagnosis. First rule, stop trying to change their mind. You're not looking for their real reason. You're looking for the polarization point. Listen for the sentence they repeat. I'm done with this job. This house is perfect. I have to do this now. That's the dominant. That's the card they keep playing. Write it down. Because a polarized brain sees only one path. It's not evaluating options. It's defending a neural groove. Once you've found the dominant, here's what you don't do. Step 2, never argue, tell stories. The moment you say, but you're wrong, you've lost. The brain hears conflict and activates its defense system. So instead of arguing, you do something different. You tell a story, not a lecture, not a warning, a casual story. Example, your employee wants to rage quit without notice. Do not say, don't quit, you have bills. That's a direct argument. Their brain puts up a defensive shield. Instead, say, oh, by the way, my cousin quit without notice last year. Spent 6 months dealing with COBRA paperwork, like actual nightmare fuel, state insurance forms, 3-hour hold times. They had to fax documents in 2024. Fax. Notice what just happened. You didn't argue. You didn't warn. You didn't lecture. You planted a specific, boring reality into their mental landscape. Paperwork, hold times, fax machines. Here's why this works. Anecdotes bypass the logical filter. Your brain files them as neutral data, not threats. They slip past the dominant like water through cracks. Most people argue head-on. You're smarter, you're planting seeds. But one story isn't enough. If you stop here, the dominant wins. You need the next step. Step 3, the dilation. You know the saying. If at first you don't succeed, try again? Wrong. If at first you don't succeed, try something completely different. Here's the rule. Don't repeat the same point 100 times. Tell 100 different things. Let's go back to the rage quit scenario. You've planted the Cobra story. Good. Now you keep going. Story about unemployment paperwork. Story about explaining gap years in interviews. Story about losing employer-matched 401k vestings that were 3 months from vesting. Story about awkward LinkedIn status updates. Story about calling old bosses for references when you left on bad terms. You're not arguing. You're changing the flavor of the mental stew. You can't scoop thoughts out of someone's head, but you can keep adding ingredients until the whole stew tastes different. Here's the science. The dominant survives on simplicity. One thought, one card. When you flood the system with 10, 20, 30 competing data points, the brain can't hold the polarization. It depolarizes. The obsession doesn't disappear. It just loses its monopoly on attention. Skip this step, and they'll walk out the door. Do this right, and you'll see the shift in real time. You'll know it's working when they say one specific phrase. Step 4, recognize the moment. They won't say you're right. They'll never admit you changed their mind. That's not how brains work. Listen for these instead. I guess I'll sleep on it. Maybe now isn't the right time. Let me think about it. That's the signal. The dominant is diluted. The obsession lost its grip. They're not converted. They're depolarized. You didn't win the argument. You starved the neural loop by giving the brain too many other things to process. And here's the critical part. If you don't recognize this moment, you'll keep talking. You'll re-trigger the dominant, and they'll slam the door. So when you hear those cooling phrases, shut up. Let them sit with the expanded data. The decision will change on its own. Step 5, use it on yourself. This technique doesn't just work on other people, it works on you. Because your brain follows the same rules. When you're fixated on a bad decision, impulse purchase, rage email, quitting something prematurely, here's what you do. Write down the dominant. I need to buy this car. Then force yourself to research 10 boring logistical details, insurance quotes, registration fees, parking costs, maintenance schedules, loan APR comparisons, the specific process for transferring your old plates. Don't decide, just add data. What happens? Your own dominant gets diluted. The impulse fades. Not because you used willpower, because you flooded your mental stew with friction. Most people follow their gut. You engineer your gut. Listen, this isn't just a persuasion technique. This is how you stop being a hostage to other people's emotions. You're not manipulating. You're giving their brain permission to see options again. Because here's the thing. Every bad decision, theirs or yours, is just a narrowed consciousness. A brain that's playing one card on repeat. Bougienage doesn't force, it expands. It gives the brain room to breathe. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every rage quit, every impulse buy, every fixation, you'll spot the narrowing before it locks in your employee, in your friend, in yourself. And you'll know exactly what to do. Not argue, not logic, just dilate. You don't win arguments by being right. You win by making the other person's brain too big to stay stuck. That's Bougienage.